Hi, I'm Lisa Andria, Transformation Life Coach. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leap podcast, where guests share their inspiring stories of leaping out of their comfort zone with confidence and power and into a life of purpose and fulfillment. Let's listen to their life-changing stories so that we can all learn how to gain the courage to take a leap of faith into a life that we love so that we can all be Ladies Who Leap. Let's get started.
Hey, yeah.
Welcome to the Ladies Who Leap podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to the inspiring stories of people who took a leap of faith to reach new heights in their life. My goal is that their stories inspire you to take the first steps of many to follow your own unique dreams. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Sarah Hauer Nelson. Sarah was happy as a stay-at-home mom and homeschooling mom for several years. After victimization, years of severe lupus, betrayal, all culminating in a long divorce process, Sarah found the strength to pick up her spine from off the floor, take charge of her life, and live it joyfully. As a writer and coach and soon to be podcast host, Sarah believes that joy didn't erase her challenges. Joy put them into proper perspective, and she helps others to understand that they can have joy do that for them also. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yay. So I understand, we've talked, we've known each other for a while. This is the Ladies Who Leap podcast, so it's about leaping out of your comfort zone. However, this is also about overcoming difficulties in your life. And you've certainly overcome several difficulties. You've had health challenges, like you said, like I said in the bio, you've had betrayal and a divorce. But you've taken those experiences and you took and made a conscious effort at a certain point in your life to focus on yourself. And this was after your children were grown.
Right.
So, despite what life threw at you, you were able to feel joy about focusing on yourself, writing novels, which we'll talk about, publishing your blog posts, which are amazing. You're a great writer, and then turning into a coach and having a podcast. So, let's start your journey from the beginning. Being a mom, homeschooling, having children, there's a lot of moms that probably could be listening and understand how you can go from really focusing on everybody else to focusing on yourself. Tell us about that early journey.
Oh, and it's a long story. I'll have to try to keep it short. So I married young. The man I believed was the love of my life, and I don't say that that was a mistake. I actually do believe he was the love of my life. Loved him very deeply, and we were poor as church mice. We were still in college when we got married, and had children quite quickly, but far apart. And I loved every minute of being a wife and being a mother. And I did, of course, lose myself in the process, because when you do focus on other people and you don't put enough attention on yourself, that is inevitably going to happen. And that did happen. At the same time, I'm very grateful for those years. I was happy. I have three wonderful children who are adults now. Two of them are married themselves, and one of them, I have three adorable little grandchildren.
Congratulations. How
Thank
fun.
you.
Get to spoil them.
Yes. And they those years were not without their challenges before the real challenges began, but they really were mostly filled with joy. As far as I know, I don't have my ex-husband's perspective. I thought he was happy. I know I was happy. The kids say that they were happy, and I wouldn't trade those years in for anything. I really wouldn't. I do wish, however, that I had taken more time for myself still during those years. It would have made the real tough challenges that I went through and the changes, the growth I had to go through easier if I had been better prepared. But they were still really wonderful years.
That's an interesting, if we can just touch on that a little bit, that's an interesting perspective. I really haven't heard that before because one of the questions I will ask and usually do ask is, what do you think the cost has been for you not having growth, personal growth, and getting to the point of being happy and joyful in your life sooner? What was that cost? In this case, you found that had you more sooner focused on yourself, you would have had better tools to deal
Yes.
with what was going to come at you. That's an interesting perspective.
I look back now and I realize that there's like this unspoken myth people have that happy people never have problems.
Mhm.
And that's wrong. That is absolutely not true. If happy people never had problems, then that would mean that happy people could control everybody else around them so they never got hurt. That's not
And
possible.
that's not a good thing to do either. Some people
No.
do have that issue of controlling everyone and everything, and
Yeah.
that's very unhealthy and difficult, even physically, can hurt you physically. Yeah.
Yeah. So I really, I mean, one of the messages that I really want to get out with my podcast is that by learning from people who did find joy after, that maybe people will learn to look for joy, look for gratitude already, now, today. And that way they're consistently, slowly building themselves up, growing as they age and as they go through life circumstances, so that sure enough, when something does happen, I mean, you wouldn't know because you can't see more than one path at once. You wouldn't know if things are better than they would have been, but you pretty much can bet on it, you know.
Yeah, had you been given the tools sooner in life to understand that and to know that, yes, bad things are going to happen, but here is a healthy way for me to react to that and how to
Exactly.
overcome it. If you had had that knowledge sooner, maybe when you got hit with what I think is one of your first things, was it that the betrayal and the divorce happened first before your health issues? The health issues were first then.
Yeah, the first thing was the crime. And that is something I can't go into too many specifics because I'm not the only person who was victimized.
Oh.
But it was an extended family member who did perpetrate a violent crime against my family. My children, my husband, we all suffered tremendously from it. And yes, if I had been stronger in myself, I could have handled it better for all of us. If we were all taking more time to grow ourselves individually, we all could have done better. And it wasn't that what we were doing is necessarily bad. It was just all one directional. We were very much a family of serving each other, and that's great. But you also have to have space to serve yourself too. And we didn't do a good job of that. We were either one direction or the other direction. So we were a typical traditional family. We didn't even think of ourselves that way. We just were. You know, my husband, I had children who had some challenges of their own that weren't that major. They were minor, but I chose to stay home because of them and homeschool because of them. So naturally, he focused on being the breadwinner. So he did more of his focus outside of the home. I did more of my focus of serving everyone in the home. And it had its pluses, but we were blindsided to what it had for negatives.
Mm.
So
Yeah, because then as you were raising them, I'm assuming they were getting a little older, and then you were hit with the infidelity issue. Am I
not
correct?
yet.
Oh.
That didn't happen. So we ended up moving from Minnesota to California to start our lives over again once we got through all of the court case and everything else like that. And so we picked up and we got to California and decided to start over. And the first year that we were in California, everything was going great. It really was wonderful. Then I got hit with a really bad headache that would not go away. I woke up the next morning still having the headache, and I ended up by the end of that day in the hospital, and I was there for days. And that's when we found out that I was actually sick and didn't know it. And I have systemic lupus, and my lupus likes to destroy the platelets in my blood, which can cause me to internally bleed. And that's essentially what was causing the headache. I had a small, slight hemorrhage in my brain that was going on. So that was the beginning of the longest of all the challenges I had. I was mostly bedridden for a good chunk of 8 years.
Wow.
from the
Wow.
lupus. So, and then that led to a bad back. I ended up having a disc blow in my lower back. So just as I was going into remission from lupus, I was going straight into massive back pain that we didn't even recognize I had gone into remission. That's why I have a hard time figuring out how long was I in remission? Because it kind of went from one health problem and merged into the other. But I had back surgery, which was risky. It was very risky, and I did bleed out on the table, but I survived it. And the amazing thing is that as soon as the surgery was over, I wanted to get up and run around, and the nurses wouldn't let me.
Oh gosh.
Because I felt so wonderful. I felt just absolutely amazing. And they're like, well, you just had massive surgery because they opened me up from front to back, completely opened me up because the disc had blown so much there were little pieces all over.
Oh
So they
wow.
had to open me wide open and dig them all out. And when I wanted to get up and walk, they're like, you just went through surgery where essentially you were impaled all the way through the body. You can't get up yet. And I'm like, I don't care. Just let me walk to the door. Just let me walk.
Oh, those drugs were working well on you.
That's when we started putting together the pieces that, wait, the lupus is in remission. And when did that happen? We didn't know. So I just had to recover from the back surgery, which then I was doing. Then came the betrayal, or when I found out about the betrayal. So then I found out a few months into my recovery from the back surgery and feeling more and more energy and more clear thought, because the lupus really messed a lot with my mind. Then I ended up finding out by accident that my husband at the time had in fact been betraying me for a few years while I was sick. So that's when the betrayal hit. And then he walked out the door, and he was the love of my life. And of all the things that I went through, I thought that the crime that happened against us was the worst thing that could ever happen to me, and to my family. Then I thought frankly, nearly dying from lupus was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Him walking out the door at that time was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Absolutely crushed me. I was a complete wreck. I was sand. I was ground down to sand and didn't know what to do. Everyone was in shock. He had done such an amazing job of taking care of me when I was sick that no one had a clue he was doing anything like this. Absolutely no clue. No one. No one.
Did you have support from your family and friends after this happened?
I had a ton of support, thank God. I don't know how I would have gotten through it without. The best support, though, that I got, and that's not to say anything bad about anybody, it's just that people didn't know what to do. They had seen me go through all that, and here I was going through something else. I mean, people were like, they were like, Sarah problems exhausted, because there just seemed to be one thing after another after another. So I did a search online for help for my marriage, and that took me on a course that led me to a life coach. He was amazing. He was so amazing. He is why I say I had to pick my spine up off the floor, because every time I thought, this is it, I can't do it anymore, he'd say, Sarah, get down on the floor and find your spine. Put
Oh,
it
wow.
in. Put it in. And he got me examining my life. He got me to take and look at my life, painful as it was, pull it apart, look at myself emotionally, intellectually, physically, spiritually, break them down, and do something every single day to grow. And that was through podcasts, that was through walking, that was through reading, that was through, when I was really down, turning on a sitcom. Nothing that was going to make me emotional, nothing that was going to make me angry. a sitcom, or sometimes I would want to watch high action movie. Just I had only do certain categories until I got, and to give myself time to heal. And yeah, and things spiraled from there in a great way. The divorce was long and grueling, but at the same time, the fact that it was a long divorce, it gave me time to really process my feelings for my husband, my ex-husband, and put them into proper perspective, and to give myself permission that no matter what I'm going through, I can still be a happy person that I was.
And to understand that there's learnings here, right? Whatever experience,
Yeah.
negative, really, in fact, I don't want to, say this in a way, but the more difficult things that you experience are the ones that give you the most lessons.
And now here I am, and you already know this, and people are just finding out I'm not in remission anymore. I just got told finally. I've been knowing it for the past few weeks now. We kind of knew it was coming. I was trying to do things to nip it in the butt, but didn't quite get there. I just got re-diagnosed with lupus yesterday. And no, day before yesterday. And my attitude about it was entirely different. It was like, okay, been there, done that. Gonna do it again. Okay.
Boy, is it testament to having a resilient character, to understanding what how to react, how to be when you're feeling these feelings of challenges, when you're going through challenges, how you should be in that moment to be able to be healthy with that reaction and not just fall down and let it just happen. It's life happening for you in a sense. Even though it's a negative thing, you understand how to deal with it. And you can actually turn your mind-body connection is pretty strong. So you can do a lot of your positive thoughts, your getting through your resiliency in your mind and helping your body recover also.
Exactly.
I'm gonna, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Ask the question.
Well, I was gonna say, and I know that writing your novels was a part of your journey to really bring you joy. You've mentioned that before. When did that start? And give us an idea of what these novels are about.
So when I was bedridden with the lupus, when laying in bed drove me insane. I mean, even though I was a stay-at-home mom, I was a busy stay-at-home mom. There was always something I was doing. I was homeschooling and when stuff would come up, socially, I was taking care of it. With extended family, I was taking care of things. I was always doing something. And when I cooked and when I baked from scratch, and I volunteering for things, and I was living my best life. I really was, or at least as much as what I knew to do. So laying in bed, it's like, I have to do something. I can't do nothing. And when I was a kid, I used to play around with writing short stories. And only one ever got close to getting published, just one. And I had written a short story, and literally I was in the 6th grade. I was a kid. And I had written a short story about a little boy whose dog died. And his parents had given him a puppy. And he was rejecting the puppy because he was so broken up over the death of his dog. And of course, by the end of the story, he falls in love with his puppy and overcomes. And my 6th grade teacher had read it. And it wasn't for class. It was just something I had written. And my 6th grade teacher had read it, and she wanted to send it off to a publisher for me. So she asked me to take it home and rewrite it during the summer. Well, you know how kids are that age during the summer. I went out and played, I didn't work on it. And finally, towards the end of the summer, I was like, oh, that's right. I promised Mrs. Giese that I would rewrite that story, and she was going to send it in. So I went looking for it so I could rewrite it. And one of my older sisters, I won't say which one, had cleaned house and had thrown that notebook in the garbage,
Oh no.
not knowing what it was. She thought it was just scribble stuff. And I barely wrote after that. After that, I only wrote for high school class requirements, college class requirements. But every time I wrote something, I always got like, hey, you're really good at this. You should do this. My interest was in archaeology. That's where I actually do have a bachelor's degree in archaeology. But of course, one of the reasons I love archaeology is because I love thinking about the stories of those people who lived in the past. It's all about stories, isn't it? It's
It
all about
all is,
stories.
it's all about stories. It's how our unconscious mind learns. It's just from stories. That's why I have this podcast. It's all about stories. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I'm laying in bed just sick as a dog. And I'm like, I have to do something. What can I do? I could barely move. Pulled out. I asked my ex-husband, or husband at the time, I said, I could really use a laptop. He got his hands on one and gave it to me. I mean, because I credit him, he did take care of me when I was sick in multiple ways. He really did. And I don't hate him because I know that that whole time was super stressful for him. I know that, and I acknowledge that fully. But he got me a laptop. And I started writing a story about a woman who had lupus. And it turned into a novel, a shorter novel, but it's a novel called Shattered Crystal. Her name is Crystal. And yeah, she's dealing with life and she's dealing with lupus. And my ex-husband, he took it, he edited it, and he submitted it for self-publishing. And yeah, it's out there. It's of the novels, it's my best-selling one, is my first one.
Wow.
And so he completed it for me while I was sick in bed. And then I started the next one. And I only wrote two at first. The second one is called Between Layers. And it's a complete fiction story. It's not about anybody I know from town, but its setting is based on the two hometowns that my ex-husband and I grew up in, because those towns are right next to each other. And so yeah, I wrote the next one. Most people prefer Shattered Crystal. My favorite is actually Between Layers. I really like that story. And then during the separation and divorce, the third novel I wrote is called The Power of Ketchup. And contrary to the title, it's not a cookbook and it's not a children's book. It's very much an adult book. The very first chapter is actually quite risque. um, but it's about a town who there's a face on the scoreboard of the softball field that looks like the face of Jesus. And because one person said it looks like blood, they all think it's blood. It's not, it's ketchup. And I'm not giving away the ending by saying that. I'm not. It's just ketchup. But the whole town is in an uproar because they think Jesus has come to they're
Gosh.
all looking at how they're living their lives.
Interesting. That's a cute storyline too. I mean, it's not far-fetched either. It's something that could happen. Yeah.
I
Interesting
got the
story.
idea for it from somebody who was pointing at the bark on a tree and saying, "Oh, look, it's the Virgin Mary," and I'm like, "It's bark on a tree, okay?" And that's where it came from.
I was going to say, where did some of these stories come from? So thank you for sharing that. How did you find the courage after you decided to focus on yourself and go through what you went through, go through the divorce, and then move on from there to decide how to kind of put together your own power and strength and help others? How did you get that idea or that courage? But you're helping yourself, but then you at some point, right, you decided to help others.
Yes, I
And
did.
I think you put together a blog is how you started, which I think you just recently published. But where did that come from? Where did the courage come from to do it? And where did the idea and the need, I guess, to follow that passion come from?
I would say it was a slow evolutionary process for my entire life. I mean, starting off with, being very hands-on with my children. That's serving them. When I first got sick with the lupus, I wasn't immediately first in bed. That actually took almost a year before it was like, okay, I have to stay in bed. so during that first year, the high pain, I had joined a pain support group. And I ended up somehow sort of helping out with helping other people figure out how to deal with their pain in a better way, mentally, not letting it, because if you let, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain, if you let that get to you, it will change who you are as a person. You can really go spiral down a nasty rabbit hole if you don't consciously, intentionally work on your mental process.
Yeah.
And somehow that just kind of naturally happened where I was helping out the organizers of this group, help people with that. And that's when I started writing for the blog posts or articles for an online publication called The Mighty, where I actually shared what I was suffering with and how I was dealing with it, both physically and mentally. And and I didn't really know yet what I was doing because I was not yet, reading all these books and everything I started doing with the separation. I just was like, I kind of figure out a way to handle these things. I can share with people how I did that. And so it started there. And that's when I, was writing the novels. And then get a little emotional thinking about it all. And then I started the blog. I started the blog post with the when I found out about the betrayal and he moved out. And in working with my coach, I just kind of naturally transitioned from just dealing with the illness with the Mighty. It went to dealing with the heartbreak with the blog. And my daughter, who was a teenager at the time, almost done with high school, she created my website for me, the blog site. And working with the life coach I had, he was like, you're really good at this. You should think about being a life coach. He said, people just kind of naturally gravitate to you. And he was the one who really got me started on, I was always a reader. I was always reading like novels and stuff, which is also important to read, but he really got me focusing on other types of books, on personal growth books and things like that. And so I just started really consciously sharing the lessons I was learning as I was learning them. And then I went ahead and said, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. And so I went and I decided to go ahead and get certified, even though you don't need to be certified. I just thought I'm going to go ahead and do it because I want to make sure that I know what I'm doing. So I got certified as a life coach. I'm also now certified as an art therapy practitioner as well. I went ahead and got that. And yeah, it wasn't like a one-time sudden decision and just started it was a slow evolutionary process because I there's this other idea that you can only be one or the other. Like you're a server person or you're a self-focused person. No, it's both. And realizing that it was both and I could do both and I could be both. That was huge. That was important.
That was a revelation, I'm sure.
It was.
Yeah. Yeah, because if as women, we think we have to devote everything to helping others. And we can take time out of the day to focus on ourselves, like that whole idea of put your mask on first, because in order for you to help others, you have to be healthy yourself. So, and especially when you're going through health issues and emotional challenges and just, really trauma and everything that was happening with you, you had to get yourself in order. You had to let yourself be with yourself for a while.
And I had to learn to accept being served by other people.
Mm-hmm.
That was really hard. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention these two incredible groups of women that I got exposed to. One of them was my life coach put me into a small group of women online. We met on Zoom. We were all going through betrayal and potential divorce, separation, whatever. And all of us loved our husbands, at least to some degree. And we were all heartbroken. And we held each other up. And we're still in contact with each other. Some of us are now fully divorced and have moved on. Some of them saved their marriages. We're all at different levels, different places of how we all ended up, but we're still great, wonderful friends. And they were huge. We all served each other and had to give ourselves permission to allow ourselves to be served. And then the other group of women was, I also joined a Bible study group at my church, and we call ourselves Table 16. And I'm not even there anymore. But when I was at the lowest level of dealing with the betrayal, one of those women knew what I was going through and called me up, and she said, "You're coming with me Tuesday morning." And I cried on the shoulders of those women at that table. And they also served me and held me up and were just absolutely amazing. But I had to humble myself to accept that service from all of them.
Yeah, that I know a lot of us people listening, I know myself, it took many years for me also, and part of it being not wanting to show your vulnerability, making yourself feel like I don't want to bother people. I don't want them to be bothered by taking care of me, even though you would do the same in return and not even think about it. But to have it be done to yourself, and also even in a way, not trusting, I love these people. I have a great relationship. If they have to take care of me, what if something happens and then they don't like me anymore? Because all kinds of things go through your head. So when you overcome that, it's huge to allow other people to help you. And I like to think of it as when you help someone else, it's a gift to you. Someone is allowing you to help them. That's a gift for you. So you need to allow other people, give them the gift of being able to help you.
Yeah.
It took me to change that thought process and look at it that way in order to allow people to help me. Because yeah, I went through big operations and everything and didn't even tell friends, didn't ask for help, and they were like, "We didn't even know you went through this." Yeah, because I didn't want to bother you. They're like, no, it wouldn't have been a bother. Okay, so it was my issue, not anybody else's issue. It's your own issue. Do you have and you've given, a lot of inspiring stories, but is there one particular story that really kind of led you to um, about your own life that could inspire and teach other listeners something specific? Do you have anything that you'd like to share to inspire and help others that may be going through very difficult times? And by the way, I want to mention you go by Humor and Chaos.
Yes.
So that's a very interesting name. I don't know if there's anything related to that and where that name came from, but I was just wondering if you had a specific story or a lesson another lesson. We've gone through a lot of stuff, so I'm just asking for another one.
Civic lesson. That even when we feel the most alone, we are not. Just as I was preparing for my back surgery, my best girlfriend in the whole world found out she was living through betrayal too from her husband, and he also left her just months before I went through this. And I was preparing for my back surgery, and I was in a great deal of pain, and she was in a great deal of pain, and we have been friends since 4 years old. And even though it was not a good idea, I hopped on a plane and I went to her. And all I did was cook her food and sit on the couch. Actually, I laid on the couch because of my back, and she sat on the couch and we just watched TV. And when she talked, I listened. And when she was quiet, I was quiet. And the only thing I forced her to do was eat a few bites. That's all I forced her to do. I didn't force her to do anything else.
You just gave her space.
I just gave her space and love.
Yeah.
And my presence.
Yeah.
And at this point, I did not know what was happening in my own life. And then I went home and I had my surgery, and then my world fell apart. And she was not able to come to me, but she wanted to. And she sent me stuff, and she called me, and she she gave to me what I gave to her. And as we went through our divorces, along with those two groups of women I had her. And she was my biggest lesson of all, that it doesn't matter what you're going through, whether you know it or not, so is somebody else.
You're not
So is
alone.
somebody else.
You're not alone.
You are not alone. As you can feel, when I didn't realize then that as I was laying in bed for those years, most of the time, I spent like a good 80 to 90% of my time just in my bed. Cannot tell you how sick and tired I was of my bed. There were other people out there who knew what I was going through. And yeah, and that's why I wanted to do the life coaching. That's why I wanted to do it. I wanted to be able to show people through my presence and through my experience that there's a lot of us, not necessarily the same experiences, they could be going through, they may be someone close to them passed away. That's still a tremendous amount of pain and grief, tremendous amount. And the discovery with all the lessons that I learned on acceptance and perspective, it all came down for me to one word that very few people know about. And I rarely say the word because most people kind of look at me, but it really comes down to equanimity. And equanimity is not laying judgment on what's happening. It's just accepting it for that it's there, that it happened, or that it is happening. Because something might seem really bad right now, but over time might actually be something really wonderful. And something might be really wonderful right now, but over time, it might actually have been something terrible. You might have thought it was one thing, and it might turn out that it was something else. So the challenges that I went through, each one, as you said, prepared me for the next. And so for me to have put judgment on them actually created for me barriers on healing. So now I understand. I tell people when I talk to people, I focus on acceptance and I focus on perspective. But what I'm really trying to get to is the emotional detachment, not emotional denial, because emotions are important, but the emotional detachment from putting labels on what's happening. So right now, here I am sick again. Okay. I still have so much to be grateful for of every day. And the rest of it is it just is.
I'm glad I asked that last question. Yeah, your answer was very powerful. And I know it's hit a lot of people that are probably a lot of people who are going through difficult times. So thank you for that. And just to give space to people, I actually just did a little video about that, just to listen. As a coach, that's most of what we do is we listen, just giving people space. So one of the last things before you tell us how everybody can reach you is to give us your favorite quote, mantra, or positive affirmation, because a lot of times I know this has happened. Somebody just hears it and they're completely inspired and it changes their life. So if we've done that for even one person, we've done our job. So I know you have two because we talked about this. You can do both of them. It's up to you.
I'm gonna do the
They're
one.
both, you're going to do one. Okay.
I'm gonna do the one. I just read it this morning. And so I'm reading Mel Robbins, the Let Them.
Let Them Theory. And I think it just came out, right? The book
It
just came
did,
out.
it
Yeah.
did. I came back from my Christmas trip and it was in my mailbox. I was so happy.
I just ordered it actually.
And at the beginning of chapter 5, on the bottom of page, or at the top of page 79, she quotes the poet Mary Oliver. And Mary Oliver's poem is entitled The Summer Day. And I highly recommend just look it up. It's a short poem, but it's really beautiful. But Mel quotes the last line where Mary Oliver says, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" See, it makes me cry
Yeah.
because that's what we have.
Yeah. Yeah. And those of you like yourself and other people that have gone through such difficult life challenges really understand that there is your unique self, and understanding and finding that unique self and living your life honoring that unique self is what life is all about. Because when you honor yourself, you can teach your children how to do the same. They can pass it down generational, some good lessons generationally now from this way forward. Yeah. Gosh, Sarah,
Look,
thank you
I
so
have
much.
a
I
tear.
know you're crying. I'm sure even other people listening have probably have a tear too. I was trying not to cry while you were talking. I was getting emotional too, but I really want to thank you for opening up and being so vulnerable and just beautiful and loving on this podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's share how people can learn more about you. What is a couple ways they can do it? And if you have more, I'll put them in the description. But
So
how
I
can
do
they?
have a website that my daughter's my IT person, my, my amazing daughter. she she takes care of it for me. It's www.humorinchaos.com. And on it is my email, which is humorinchaos@gmail.com. And I do read emails from people. And on there is my blog. I have a blog series, and then there's a separate section in the blog series called Searching for Joy, which is specifically the lessons I learned through the separation and the divorce. I go through each lesson, like forgiveness and the definition of love for me now, and all this just perspective, perseverance. There's a lot. And then outside of that, I also self-published that entire blog series into a paperback that you can find on Amazon, and it's called Humor in Chaos, Searching for Joy by Sarah Hauer Nelson. So
That's fabulous. And at some point, I don't know if it's going to happen by the time this podcast is out, but at some point you're going to have, is it a Humor and Chaos podcast?
Humor in Chaos podcast, and I am, and I do have already a list of guests who have asked to be on it. My story is out there. My story is out there all over the place, and I want to talk about other people's stories because people have amazing stories of overcoming, and we all can learn so much from them.
Yeah.
And so that's what I want. The first one is going to be about me. My kids tell me, you have to, not everybody's heard your story, Mom. You have to tell it. Okay, so the first episode is going to be about me. And that's also what's holding me back, because I'm like, I have to talk about myself again.
Well, I was just going to say, I'd love to read a book about your story. This is another thing that you need to do as a writer. Oh, there's a cat outside my window that just stared at me. That was weird. But you need to write a book about your story. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I would read the book that you'd write about your story. So just putting it out there. Well, again, I just want to thank you. This has been a lot of fun. I really want to thank you for sharing your joy with the world, because as a life coach, sometimes you don't realize how much impact you have on others, positive, joyful impact, and you have that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you, everyone who's been listening. Remember to subscribe, please. There are a lot of ways to do it. I have a YouTube channel. I'm also on, I have I'm sure I'll have this in the notes or comments, a Podbean site so that you can see all the links to I'm on all the podcast platforms. And on the 1st and the 8th of the month, a new one comes out. So thank you for listening. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening or watching. Please subscribe to the Ladies Who Leap podcast to be notified of new episodes. And I would love to hear from you. Let me know what works, what doesn't, and if you have a story to tell, please reach out. Come join the Leap community at the Ladies Who Leap Club Facebook group. Remember, leaping out of your comfort zone is where the growth happens.